where I've only just begun my journey making instruments. These two gave me the chance to get started, to get my feet wet, so to speak. The hammered dulcimer was the first. It came from a kit, so all the pieces came pre-cut and marked for holes. It's also fairly self-explanatory. It's a box with strings on it and some internal supports. There's a block about there, and a cross piece about there to support the tension from the strings. With the drum, I got a bit deeper into it. There was no blueprint, there were no pre-cut pieces, just some wood, some tools, and an idea. It turned out to be somewhat more complicated than I thought originally, so let's check out the process. I started by cutting some chunks of wood. Then I cut them to the proper width and beveled the edges to the proper angle, as determined by some basic trigonometry. So it actually turns out that there is a real-life application for that. Next, I laid the beveled staves on a piece of tape to hold them together, and clamped it all together with the help of a table, a ratchet strap, and the immense weight of math and physics. That clamping setup turned out to be less than cooperative, so for the other drums, I used this one. Works much better this way. At the bottom of the drum on this picture, I cut a slit in the strap so that it could thread through itself. Then I built a jig to hold the drum over a router table to round the outside. It looks like that. The drum on this jig can rotate along with the threaded rod, which will also move it to the side. Here's what it looks like in action. So you'll see it starts just cutting the corners off, but eventually that would be cutting down the outer diameter of the drum. After several times back and forth like that, it looks something like this. Nice and round. So this is the inside rounding jig. The electrical conduit pipes fit rather nicely over the threaded rods and allow the drum to roll freely. As you might imagine, this part of the process is quite time-consuming, but it does the job. There were some problems along the way making the pine drum. Every angle that I cut for the staves was about a degree off, so by the time it was round, it was about an 1/8 inch smaller in diameter than it should have been. That sounds like a very small difference, but here's the result. This is what the drum should look like, and this is what it does look like with that missing 1/8 inch. You can see the tension rods are angled inward. Also, since it's just generic pine boards, when I cut the bearing edges and drilled holes for hardware, it tore apart rather a lot. It may not be a great drum, but all things considered, I'm pretty happy with it, and the other two turned out really well.